Bjorn, thank you for joining Drilling into Crypto and being on the show. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me, Mohammed. Yeah,
Pleasure. Uh, I want to start off by really asking you about yourself, learning more about your journey, how you got into Bitcoin, where it all started, and what was that moment of time that you transitioned from, you know, traditional legacy financial or accounting systems uh, to Bitcoin, and tell us all about your journey.
sure, sure. So I started my career in around the
Millenn-
around year 2000.
millennia.
And
Millennia.
yeah, yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
I managed to score a job straight away at a stock brokerage firm.
Okay.
And we were working on setting up a digital representation of the stock exchange here in Norway. So all the traders were moving from the physical stock exchange themselves and sitting on individual offices, being able to trade over the computer instead of analog trade. I mean, this was a breakthrough because we had just gotten the internet basically the year before I started working, uh, and um, and this was a big deal to have online trading instead of physical trading, I guess, or analog trading. I spent the first, 10 years in 2000 in the 2000s working with banks and stock exchanges and ever increasing need for speed on trading platforms and so on. I was even at a data center in Stockholm cutting down cables or cutting down the length of a cable to make it shorter from one exchange to our trading platform, making it that distance as tight as possible. And we're talking like cutting down a computer cable by this much to make the trading faster. So uh, hundreds of a millisecond, right? Um, and I knew, from my experience, there was a lot of this setting up proprietary networks, proprietary systems for the financial network, for banks and for exchanges, and data centers all over the Nordics, in mountain regions and hidden from the public. Um, and then I kind of stumbled onto Bitcoin in 2012. I was kind of searching for an incentive program, or somehow I could pay my employees with a incentive structure, and it was Googling everything around like money for employees or motivation, and suddenly I got the Bitcoin white paper. And I started reading it, and one of my employees had heard of it before, and but we kind of came to the quick consensus right there and then that, oh, this has to be a scam. This is bullshit. You can't have money on the internet. Everything can be hacked, so this is not going to work out. And so I kind of put it aside, but I thought it was curious that someone would go to the length of writing a 7-page paper on something that obviously is not going to work. So kind of like took it up from time to time, but never had time to really read it until about a year and a half later, summer of 2013, where I had my parental leave. I had gotten a daughter, and I had some time to look at stuff that I had kind of blown away, and started reading the Bitcoin white paper, looking it up and Googling it. And to my surprise, it not only was it not there anymore, it was just expanding and getting bigger. And I read about, how the different attack vectors of 51% attack and so on. And I was like, this is very, very intriguing because it means you could send value over the internet, unlike everything that I've ever learned about the financial system, which is proprietary cables, expensive cables. And so I was like, okay, what do I do? Like, do I continue my career in setting up expensive networks, proprietary networks, or do I just say, all in on this Bitcoin thing? And I pretty much decided there and then that I would try. I would start my own company. So when my parental leave was done, I quit my company that I was working for, and I started my own company. And I started mining. I started doing lots of different things, mostly in IT, but keeping an eye on Bitcoin and the development. And you go through the stages of like, oh, it's not Bitcoin, it's blockchain, and you kind of, and then you get interested into Ethereum, and then you get pulled in this direction, pulled in that direction, and then at the end
Yeah.
of it, like in 2017, right before the big boom in 2017 on the price, I was pretty sure and firm about it's Bitcoin. It has nothing to do with blockchain. It's decentralized Bitcoin. That's all you need to worry about.
You,
So
you've been in Bit
yeah, that was
you mentioned you've been in Bitcoin since like around 2012, 2013, and
yeah.
from a cybersecurity and transparency standpoint, why is Bitcoin fundamentally different from the schemes it's often grouped with,
Mhm.
like from these other altcoins, I presume, right? So why do you feel
Sure.
like Bitcoin is fundamentally different, but mainly from that, cybersecurity and transparency standpoint?
Well, it's quite easy actually because Bitcoin has attracted the most computing power for its mining.
Yeah,
Meaning there's first of all, it's decentralized and it's purely decentralized. You have such massive global mining that no one has any um, what should I say advantage of their mining compared to anyone else. Now, a lot of people come to me and say, well, that's not true because you have these mining pools. Well, let me tell you, mining pools does not matter when it comes to the discussion of decentralization. Mining pools is just a collection working together. If you're not happy with the people you're working with, you change pools within 10 minutes. So it only has a centralization effect for 10 minutes and then it doesn't anymore. Everyone mining is deathly afraid of this centralization. So everybody tries to keep it decentralized as much as they can. But this also means that anything that runs the same protocols as Bitcoin can be destroyed by these same miners. If these miners say, okay, look at, well, if you look at some of the early versions, like, or let's take Bitcoin Cash, right? It runs on the same basic principle, same infrastructure. If someone wanted to do a 51% attack on Bitcoin Cash, it would be quite easy to do if they have the mining power. So they would just switch from mining BTC Bitcoin to mining Bitcoin Cash. And then they would, if they have enough power, it could do a 51% change the software, do a double spend. I mean, there's many crazy things you can do with with a cryptocurrency once you have a majority, a 51% possibility. But yeah, that's why no other cryptocurrency is as safe as Bitcoin. And then, we can always discuss how the evolution of certain cryptocurrencies have evolved, as in, well, take Bitcoin Satoshi Vision is completely controlled by one entity. Ethereum has an organization. It's not technically centralized. It's very technically decentralized, but you do have voices. You have Vitalik. If Vitalik says jump, you say how high. That's the way Ethereum works. And you have other, cryptocurrencies where you have some form of centralized either organization or group or entity. And then you have the cryptocurrencies that are not afraid to be centralized, like Ripple and XRP, Solana, highly centralized. These are super centralized cryptocurrencies. And that makes me kind of like, okay, so what is the point? What is the point of these? This is the whole point of cryptocurrencies, that we don't want anyone to have the ultimate totalitarian control over the currency. We want the software rules to be the rules of the system, not any rulers. So Brad Garlinghouse at Ripple, he has ultimate rule over XRP. He can change every single rule tomorrow morning, and so I don't touch the stuff. I don't touch centralized cryptocurrencies at all, and which this ultimately takes us down the path of CBDCs. And central bank digital currencies, which is highly dangerous. It's very dangerous if we get into that state, because then you have programmable money that can program society. Now, I think programmable money is a good idea if it is decentralized. If no one has the ultimate power of the system, programmable money, it might be a good idea. But not if it's controlled by someone. Then you have a problem, a major problem.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you on that one. And that's not because I don't believe that there should be policies and systems and regulations, but because I do believe that sometimes there is, sometimes there is this risk of asymmetry between policymakers and people that have skin in the game and that are actually adopting and using this technology for the greater good or for the betterment of their own lives or financial stability and financial freedom, but not so much financial freedom from the perspective of being rich or having a lot of capital reserves, right? But financial freedom from the perspective of having the freedom to choose your financial system and having the freedom of choice to decide which monetary policy you want to adopt for your own business, for your own life, and for the way you want to take in this socioeconomic structure of ours in today's world. Because I do believe there's no exit from the matrix, right, or the matrix society that we live in. There's no exit from it, but now there exists technologies that gives you alternatives from how you want to live your life. Because ultimately, you still need to
exactly.
Right, you still need to on-ramp and off-ramp crypto in order to partake in the social order that we have, right? I mean, until it becomes widely adopted.
I think much of the pain that we're seeing in the world today, much of what's happening, and we can blame it on the orange guy in the States, or we can, there's lots of things going on. But ultimately, if you boil it down, I think we're in the midst of seeing fiat collapse. Um, where Fiat has worked really well for many years, and it worked really well for this ultimately globalization movement of the world stands together. But as soon as you have countries fighting each other, uh, it, before we get to the physical fighting, you have an economic fight, and fiat is the worst money to be holding when you have these economic fights because there's so much different leverage in the system and you could pull and twist and everybody loses in the fiat fight. So I think the global elite is now in Davos and they're coming to terms with this that maybe fiat isn't a great idea if we're not going for a globalization community where the whole world is in kumbaya. If we all have to stand individually or have smaller groups, then fiat is bad news for all of us. So what do we do? And there are many a lot of people, as we've seen now, gold and silver are all-time highs because they're going to the traditional way of getting away from this problem, uh, which in the last 5,000 years have been gold and silver. But in the last 16 years, we've had a separate alternative. And in the last at least maybe of that 16 years, the last 8 years, we've really had some competition to that alternative too. Meaning, yeah, Bitcoin was born, well, 17 years ago. And in the last 8 years, we've had competitors to Bitcoin. We've had things that could test if Bitcoin really is the right code or if there's some alternative. I really appreciate all the altcoins out there. And I thank the community so much for making all those altcoins because then we can really test if Bitcoin should be what Bitcoin has become. If some altcoin was better than Bitcoin, we would have seen that right away. We would have changed. So I appreciate competition. I really enjoy that there is a competition out there. And I can't stress that enough. It doesn't, you don't get that, oh, Bitcoin is number one just because it's number one. No, it's number one because it's been tested 7,000 times every single day for the last 17 years. That's why it's number one, right?
Yeah, no, it definitely has
So I don't know.
definitely has track record. And look,
Yeah.
I believe in like you'll never know the value of Bitcoin until you actually sacrifice your entire fiat life for Bitcoin. Because at least to
Yeah.
a certain extent and and for a certain period of time. Because I'm one of those people. Uh, I'm one of those people that lived
Yeah.
on Bitcoin, right? I'm one of those people that took the time
Yeah. Yeah.
on Bitcoin literally, and
I did that too about a year and a half ago. I opted out of the fiat world completely.
and
So I have,
and you
credit
sacrifice
cards
a lot
connected
for that
to my
because
wallet.
there is volatility,
Yeah.
and and, and if you decide to live off of it and live on it, then you're going to have to understand the volatility, understand the cycles, understand how that everything that happens with Bitcoin, whether fundamentally or technically, is a feature, and how you can benefit from that feature. Uh, Whether it's with trading bots that you use to optimize your Bitcoin treasury, whether it's with Bitcoin mining that you use to have infrastructure-backed assets to safeguard your downside risk, you know, and whether it's, with how you spend it, how you use it, how you invest it, right? And holding Bitcoin in itself is good on the long term, if you're looking at a 5-year horizon as a store of value. But for short-term cycles, and if you're actually using it as a currency, then you have to learn how to adopt a holistic approach to holding Bitcoin, investing your
Yeah,
Bitcoin, and putting
yeah.
your Bitcoin to work. Uh,
It's
it's money on steroids when you put it to work the right way.
yeah.
Because fiat could
But
never.
I don't know if you've noticed this. And I would very much like to discuss this with you because when I started spending my Bitcoin and using it as my daily driver, I'm opted out of fiat, but then I'm constantly thinking, okay, so the money I have will go up in value.
Yeah,
Why do I want to buy something that is just going to hold its short-term value? Like I tend to buy higher quality of goods now. I don't know why that is,
yes,
but it's
yes, I
just
get
like
it.
I'm not buying a jacket that's not going to last at least 5 years.
It's
Like
you worry
and
about
and
spending your
with
Bitcoin.
fiat, I would feel fine buying a jacket I'm just going to wear this season, But now I'm not buying anything that's not going to last.
That's nice.
And we just
If you adopt Bitcoin,
it's
you live a
like
premium life. You upgrade your life.
yeah, you do because you're not you want you feel that because you're in a deflationary monetary situation, you feel like if I wait another month I can afford more, but if I buy this frying pan that's gonna last me the rest of my life, and spend a little more, uh, then it doesn't matter if Bitcoin kind of goes up in value because my frying pan check. I never have to buy a frying pan again,
Yeah,
right? And and it wasn't that way. It wasn't that thinking
changed your mindset.
with fiat. With fiat, I was just like, I want to get the cheapest frying pan you have because I know that all frying pans are going to break or and I'm just going to buy a new one next year or in 3 months or whatever. So you really go through this change. And also one of the things that I like to do is when I'm in a store trying to do a purchase, I have let's say I have a daily amount of money available to me, so I can buy groceries and easy things. But I don't have, let's say the value of a good winter jacket. I don't carry that on me at all times. So I go to the store and I see this nice jacket that I want to buy. Now I got to move money from my kind of savings over to my credit card or point of purchase or whatever purchase means I have for that store. I mean, if they take Lightning, great, but if they don't, which most don't, so I move it to a credit card. Um, I now am stuck in a situation where the blockchain needs my 10 minutes or maybe even more, right? I'm not skimping on fees. So usually 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes I have to wait, for a new block. That gives me 20 minutes of kind of dead time in the store or 10 minutes dead time in the store to really evaluate, do I need that jacket? Do I really need that jacket? And I'm telling you, several times I've moved the money from my savings, been stuck in waiting for that block to pass, and then passed on the good that I was going to buy. I'm turning my back and walking out the store without a new jacket, right?
I love those.
And I think it's just fascinating because if I had fiat right there, then that jacket would be on my back in no time.
Yeah, no, uh, I love those moments where, you're waiting for that block and then you change your mind. It happens. It happens a lot. I agree.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm laughing because I can relate. So, uh, you know,
good, good.
Bitcoin's Bitcoin's it definitely changes your mindset. It allows you to upgrade, your financial literacy, and improve in terms of how you want to live your life. And when
Mhm.
you're adopting, when you're holding, you know, valuable money or premium money, you're gonna automatically want to live a premium life. No one wants to sell their Bitcoin, so if you
Yeah.
sell it, you're going to be cautious on where it goes. Um, I mean, back to like the serious topics I wanted to to get your inputs on is Bitcoin. It's often blamed as uh, it's often blamed for crime, right? And you know, we,
Mm.
you and I, and a lot of people in the industry argue the opposite, and there are very, very valid arguments for why it's
Mhm.
not, you know, simply a tool for financial crime. But in a world of, vague or opaque fiat flows that are not necessarily transparent and political money, why is Bitcoin actually one of the most transparent financial systems ever created? I know you touched on that earlier here,
Yeah.
but as we look at it from, a political lens, right? Um,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
and there has been
Well,
adoption by
yeah.
governments and sovereign wealth funds around the world into Bitcoin. Is it because
Yeah.
they fear of missing out, or they don't want to look? It's a reputational risk because if Bitcoin actually
Mhm.
achieves, the returns and the rates and the value and the adoption that we claim it'll achieve, or that the trends show that
Yeah.
it'll achieve, they don't want to feel left out? Or is it because they actually believe in the technology, or do they want to control the value or the flow of Bitcoin? So, all these things come to mind when you try to make your argument as someone who's in the Bitcoin business, not just as not just adopting Bitcoin for their daily life, but someone whose business is Bitcoin, right? You always find yourself
Mhm.
in a way in a position where you have to argue the opposite, right? And that's why I ask you this question.
Yeah. Well, it's I've I built my reputation on the fighting scams in this industry. I was one of the top people involved in taking down OneCoin, which was a big scam. But with my work in that field, I've had the pleasure to be in contact with Interpol, with Europol, with the Norwegian financial police, Swedish financial police, German, and so on, and also the FBI. And one of the things that I noticed is, from my background from cybersecurity, I know that using a network, using TCP/IP, the internet, you always have a port that you're using, an exit port for. So when you look at a web page, it's port 8080 or port 80. If you're using email, it's port 23, and different ports, right? So the Bitcoin port is 8333, right? Now, who carries a log on that? Well, your ISPs do. So in Norway, we basically have two major ISPs. Well, we have many ISPs, but they're all connected to the two national, kind of ISPs. So anything going out of the country is going to go via those national ISPs. So if we know that a Bitcoin transaction has taken place and it was an illegal transaction, it was for drugs, or someone paid off something, right? And we have that transaction in the blockchain. We also have the timestamp. Now we can go to the national ISPs and ask to see their logs on that timestamp and see if anyone accessed a 333. If we find that that's tied to a local IP address or an EMI number, which is the kind of in-phone number if you use the phone. And if the police can get the EMI number, they can live track you. Now, how safe is Bitcoin? If you spend Bitcoin buying drugs, and that gives the police access to live track you, I would say do not use Bitcoin for anything illegal. That would be the most stupidest thing you could do. If it's not an EMI number, then it's a local IP address. So that would be maybe an office or a home address. So that would give the police basically a home address. Now, if you're a smart criminal and you use a VPN, for instance, well, the VPNs also have logs on all the network traffic that happens. So that doesn't help you much. If you go to the nearest McDonald's and use their network to do your transaction, well, I'm sorry, but pretty much all McDonald's and everywhere where you'll find a open internet, there's going to be video cameras around. We live in a world full of video cameras now, and so we're just looking for a timestamp, and we have you on film. I would say, use cash. If you're a criminal, use cash. There's no better way to do criminality. If you think that you can use Bitcoin for criminal activity, it's just so dumb, because these logs, they exist for a long time. The blockchain is never going to get deleted. So we can go back, several years on this and look at logs and find, IP addresses, EMI numbers, or home addresses. So yeah. Definitely don't do that. But then you touched on a much more broader point, which was kind of like, well, I would say that all banks, financial institutions today, I think there's a clear consensus that everyone is telling you have 5 to 10% allocation to Bitcoin in your portfolio. I think that's super healthy. I think that's for me, that's not going to work because I just know more.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get.
Yeah.
Exactly what I was going to ask. I mean, what happens when Bitcoin enters balance sheets in a world, built on inflation, capital controls, centralized monetary authority? Who's losing power here, actually, if Bitcoin enters balance sheets?
Well, ultimately, central banks are losing power, right?
But all this centralized
it takes a
all these centralized institutions.
Yeah, and this is the beauty of Satoshi Nakamoto. This is the essence of what he designed here, was how do I make a monetary system where it doesn't matter how much you own of it, you're not getting more power than anyone else in the system.
Mm-hmm.
Even people that don't even own the currency has as much power as you do, as Michael Saylor does over Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right? Michael Saylor can say things and he can do things to Bitcoin, which, a less educated person or a naive beginner will listen to and maybe do some bad or good decision based on what Michael Saylor has said. Now, does that change the fundamentals in Bitcoin? No, it doesn't. And, if the big orange man in the States has a national fund and blah, 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 does that change the fundamentals of Bitcoin? No, it doesn't. There is no one that can touch the fundamentals of Bitcoin. This is the beauty of decentralization. And so, yes, a lot of people are buying Bitcoin for the wrong reasons because they think that there's some kind of power to be gained, or some if I could just get enough of Bitcoin, I can be one of the global elites in the future or whatever. It doesn't work like that. That's the big secret in Bitcoin, is it's never going to give you any uh, leverage in the system. You're going to play on an equal playing field as the guy in Nigeria or in India or El Salvador or Norway or wherever you are. Your playing field is equal. And I think, one of the things we'll see going down the line is talent is going to be priced in Bitcoin. Talent is one of the first things that's going to be priced in Bitcoin, and we're going to buy services from around the globe. We're going to buy the best services from the best people, and they're going to price in what they're worth in Bitcoin, and which will make, a lot of people talk about this wage gap. That's going to disappear. Wage gap is a concept based on the fiat currency. There is no wage gap in Bitcoin over a long enough period.
Amazing. Well,
it's
yeah. That's
and
what,
also, I mean, accumulators have the ultimate problem, because it's basically impossible to hold Bitcoin. A lot of people come to me and say, well, you got into Bitcoin in 2013, you must be a millionaire. Well, the reason why I'm not a multi-millionaire today is in 2013, when I bought 1,000 Bitcoin, I was 100% sure that Bitcoin is not going to survive, so I better use that 1,000 Bitcoin to buy a PlayStation.
yeah,
I bought a PlayStation for 1,000 Bitcoin, right?
the guy who bought
I was eager to get rid of it, and today no one knew we would get here, and of course, I think it's, I'm not sad. I'm not sad or anything like that. I think it was definitely worth it, but it's fun to think about this. I played around with wallets. I lost 2 Bitcoin in just keys getting messed up in the beginning. Today, that's $200,000 or whatever. That's crazy. That's a house, right? That's a small house in some countries.
if there's one takeaway from today's session, is that Bitcoin is not about speculation. It's about transparency in a world built on hidden power. And I want to thank you for joining us, Bjorn, and being on the show. Drilling into crypto is more than just about crypto. It's about the hidden benefits and the hidden logic and the hidden technicalities